Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Tour Talk. This week we were delighted to have Charlie Benante of thrash metal legends Anthrax on the show. Charlie was kind enough to give us an hour of his time, so as you'd expect, we used that hour to ask one of the greatest rock and metal drummers of all time, predominantly about his love for playing guitar and his thoughts on the current state of hip-hop and country music. Always expect the unexpected on this podcast. We find out how Charlie put his free time to good use during the lockdown to eventually put together his new album Silver Linings that saw him collaborate with an immense list of musicians, including members of Anthrax, Testament, Suicidal Tendencies, Skid Row, Run DMC, The Butcher Babies, Volbeat, Living Colour, and so many more. Just go and check it out. Of course, we get into some discussions about touring, including Charlie's experiences of being out with Iron Maiden and travelling around South America on their plane Ed Force One. How cool. We cover the weirdest things we've all ever eaten on the road, and we take a look back on Anthrax's seminal tour with Public Enemy, which was the first time those genres were fused together in a major touring setting. Charlie's passion for music in all forms is clearly evident throughout the episode, so this is one I'm sure everyone will enjoy. New episodes of Tour Talk go live every Monday, so please subscribe, comment, and like if you enjoy what you hear, and help us spread the word by continuing to share this with anyone you think will enjoy. This is Tour Talk. Well, thank you very much for joining us on Tour Talk, Charlie. I really do appreciate you giving us some time. How are you doing?
Oh, you're welcome. I'm doing good. What is today? Tuesday? But we're not actually doing it on Tuesday. This is going to air later. So it's the future.
This is the magic of video.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm good.
I thought we'd start with like a little common ground to ease into this, if that's all right. Because we both sort of dealt, or all three of us have dealt with the lockdown in a fairly similar way. That we've all treated ourselves to lovely pandemic guitars. As you can see behind me, I've got my glorious purple Telecaster hanging on the wall there. But you guys have also invested in guitars too, right? In the last few months.
Oh, I have, yes. I've spent the last year kind of creating music and purchasing instruments, which is wrong to do, especially during the pandemic when we're not working. But man, I don't know. Something came over me, and I felt like I was a kid again, going to the music shops and seeing a guitar up there, and it's like, man, I wanted that so bad. So this was the year that I did, and I must say that some guitar companies too have been so generous this year, especially Hofner.
Oh wow!
Sent me that, and wow. Oh my God, the feeling of playing this, dude! I can't even tell you how happy I get when I play this bass. So
wow.
Yes, Hofner are awesome. Great instruments.
That's cool. I mean, I know people think it's a little strange me asking you about guitars straight up front, but obviously, especially with Silver Linings and stuff, you've kind of showcased the fact that you play guitar quite a lot, and especially having toured with you guys, if there's ever a guitar on the bus, it's either your guitar or you're the one who's playing it, which is probably people wouldn't expect, but it's been kind of great to see through the whole doing this record.
I don't know what I would do if I go a day or two without playing guitar. Drumming is different because I do love it, but nowadays I'm inspired by other things that gets me to play the drums. But with guitar, I could just be sitting watching 90 Day Fiance and just play all through the episode. You know what I mean?
I think that's funny to me as a guitar player and singer. I love the drums for hearing how to deliver a vocal line. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting, what a interesting juxtaposition, as they say.
Well, I guess for me back years ago, I couldn't convey the song ideas I had in my head through the drums to someone. I had to actually learn how to play guitar in order to show someone, well, here's how the part goes.
That's
it's not
awesome.
Like I could just go, oh, the part goes like this. You you got it. And for me, it's very like, I guess I'm very percussive when it comes to guitar playing, because the rhythms sometimes that I hear are are based on a drum beat or a fill or something like that. And I guess that's why a lot of the times the riffs are very rhythmic. Maybe that's why to this day I lock in with Scott and he locks in with me more so than other bands who the drummer locks in with the bass player. You know,
Yeah.
with this type of music, it's always been him and I locking in together.
Sure. I mean, you say that about the rhythms and stuff, but I saw you shredding a lead on Crown of Thorns on Silver Linings, which was pretty cool.
I wouldn't say shred, but
it was pretty good, man.
I can only go a certain, BPMs when it comes to guitar playing. Like certain, like you'll never see me bust out an Yngwie Malmsteen lead.
You'll never see Elsa doing that either, for sure.
I wish I could though, because it's like he's awesome. But like a Van Halen type of lead, I can come close to doing one of those or a few of those. But when it gets to certain things, that's when my brain just says, "No, stop."
Hey, Nate, do you want to tell Charlie about the guitar you bought during lockdown?
Oh
I
man,
think he'd appreciate
I
it.
bought. I did the same thing as you, where in my head at the beginning of lockdown, I'm like, there's not going to be shows for a year at the very least, so I should probably buckle down on my finances, and then immediately spent like $8,000 on guitars for literally for no fucking reason. I was in Nashville making a record, and in the studio there was a 1952 LG2, a Gibson LG2 acoustic guitar, and they're tiny little kind of parlor guitars, and the sound that comes out of it is like massive. It's just like a warm, explosive sound. So I immediately went and started shopping for them, and they were, they started at $3,000. So I immediately blew that. And then Gibson, because of their popularity in the last few years, Gibson actually made a reissue, because I realized as soon as I bought a $3,500 guitar that I'm not taking that guitar on tour. I mean, I bought a 1953 LG2, and it's never going to go on the road because it will get destroyed.
Yeah.
So then Gibson started making the reissue for about $2,500. They make an amazing brand new 2021 reissue of the same guitar. So I bought one of those, of course, with no tour dates on the book. Why not? So,
is it the same? I mean, can you compare the two models? Like, do you hear a difference between one and the other, or is it like pretty close?
They play very similarly, but the wood is so, and I never really understood this before, but the wood is aged so perfectly that it's night and day. One of them is the new one is very bright because the wood is new. It's not even, really settled in yet. But the 53 is, it's just, there's nothing that sounds like it. I've never played another guitar like this. So I imagine you could find guitars from that year for much less money that probably sound really great.
There's no cutaway on it though, right?
No. Single. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's great.
Now that's in my head. So now all day I will.
Yeah, you're going to be fucked.
But you just bought a new Martin, right, Charlie?
I bought a Martin. Yes, finally.
Yeah.
I love it. I was playing it all day yesterday because for some reason the sun was out, the weather was nice here, and it's like today's a good day to bust out that Martin and just the birds are singing, so I wanted to sing along with the birds. It's like a Disney movie. The birds come in, they pick up my clothes, they pick up my guitars, and we go off.
So obviously you've put together Silver Linings, which probably wasn't the idea at the beginning or the plan to make a record, all of that. I assume it was just a reaction to being stuck at home and trying to find some way to keep yourself sane.
Yeah.
So what was it like actually getting to play guitar on some of these? Was there a plan in your head that, I want to do a song where I play guitar, or I'm trying to find people to do a song with and I can't find someone to do this particular part? Or
well, it turned out it kind of snowballed into things that, okay, I've loved this song since I was this age. I remember playing this song when I was that age, type of thing. It all started because of I was just getting severely depressed with the news and basically the information that we weren't getting in this country, and I was just glued to the TV or the phone, man, and I was just like becoming, like I said, very depressed. And my girlfriend Carla said to me to stop, turn this off because it's really fucking you up. And it was really getting to me. I mean, I was just like, what's going on? We ever going to do this? Well, it's just going to be gone in a couple of weeks, or, so you just had all these things and we weren't getting answers to the questions that we had because I don't think anyone had the answers. So basically I shut all that off and I started to be creative again. And this was around the time when Neil Peart had passed away, and I was in a rush kind of, mode. And I called up Alex Skolnick from Testament and Ra, the bass player from Suicidal Tendencies. And we had done this mega cruise a couple of months back, and we did a couple of jams on the boat, and I always wanted to work with those guys. So we decided, I asked them if they wanted to do a Rush song, and we did it. And that was it. We were off to the races. And then just kind of snowballed after that. And thankfully for me, my guitar playing could kind of come out in a lot of these songs. And the people at IK Multimedia, I gotta give big props to them because they helped a lot. That Amplitude program, man, I spent hours just dialing in sounds for certain songs. Wow. And Roland, also huge props to them. Peisty, Tama, all the companies, but they helped me create these songs. And I can't thank them enough.
I think what I always knew, but I think what a lot of people have come to learn through all of this is how resourceful musicians actually can be. And I'm assuming that you've probably had to learn quite a lot of stuff during this to actually put all these videos together.
Taught myself how to play piano a bit. The one thing about the covers that really helped me, and it's always helped me throughout the history of Anthrax, is when you learn a cover a song, you get to actually open up your mind to other forms of music, and of course other playing. So it's like, I'll learn how to play this, and I'm like, wow, I would have never thought to go there. And man, it just helps your vocabulary, you know what I mean? And it was a big help, especially the U2 song and the Massive Attack song. Those two I felt were the most challenging, and the Run DMC, but I'll explain that one. But the U2 one, the thing about Edge is that there's not just one delay going on, there's two.
Yeah.
So you got the ping pong effect, but you also have this other effect that is it's not as loud as that one, but it's like almost a 65-35 split, but it's so important to that sound. And the other thing that I've always known about Edge is that he uses the back of the pick to play.
Right.
So
okay,
you're getting,
scratching.
You're scratching. Yeah. So a lot of the texture of the sound you hear is coming from the back of the pick. And when you do it and when you hear it, it's like, there's that sound right there. But these little tricks, and I don't know if they were tricks to him or it's just that's the way he learned how to play, but it's such a part of that sound. The Massive Attack song, I wanted to beef it up a bit from the original version, so I put this beat behind it, and then the layers and layers of stuff that were on it were just like, okay, doesn't sound right to me. Let me add 10 more layers of guitar or this kind of synth pad, So it was fun. It was just fun to discover, and this is how you do it,
So how long would you spend dissecting a song to figure all this stuff out?
A couple of days, basically. And I would even resort to that place that people go sometimes called YouTube. And it's like, how the fuck does this guy figure it out? And I can't figure that out. So it was helpful. But yeah, it was one of those things. And like the Run DMC song, I had my Alesis pad set up, and I would put different sounds that would trigger the next section of that song, and I played that song as if I was a DJ going into the next track. You know, the segues had to be seamless, so I just did it on the fly, and that's how it worked. So I would be playing and then triggering something, a sound that would get me into the next part, and that whole arrangement. I just put that together in a couple of days.
Wow, it's pretty fascinating, really. Did you say you would learn piano for some of this, or you'd started learning piano to do some of this? Nate's also learning or teaching himself piano. Have you got any tips for getting started?
No, I need
Me or-
tips. I need
Yeah,
tips.
Nate's
Trust me.
giving me
Nate,
tips.
no, Nate needs tips for
No,
sure.
I feel like my hands don't work. I've only ever played guitar, so approaching the piano, even though when you look at it, it's visually so much easier to see everything. It just felt so foreign. If I felt like my hands didn't work, or like they couldn't. You know what I mean? It makes sense in my brain. I'm looking at the keyboard, and then going to actually do it, it was like, this is not. They don't. I don't know.
That's
I'm
exactly
struggling.
the problem I have with piano is okay. So for instance, drumming, my left side, my right side, I could do total independent things with both. Guitar playing, I could do that too. When it comes to piano, I'm a mess. Like
Wow.
the left hand just doesn't want to do, doesn't want to play rhythm. You know, it's a struggle. I know where C is, but I find that my coordination with it is still not as good as it could be. So I mean, I taught myself how to play these, but that was just repetition over and over again. You know, like I would sit down and play Let It Be, and I could play that fine. And then I taught myself how to play the Mother Love Bone song. And, you know, there's one part where you got to cross over and hit that one note. And man, getting that was it took some practice.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think learning just even attempting to learn it, it opens up your brain for everything else. I feel like for me personally, and maybe it will be the same for you. It's just not improved, but broadened the way I'm thinking about everything. Sometimes simplifying it, like just figuring out a chord on the piano and seeing the individual notes and how your fingers are connecting to it, it's having me rethink about how I'm approaching guitar and how I'm approaching, everything really.
Exactly. It's to me, I think it's one of the toughest instruments to actually master. When I see piano players just get up and just play just effortlessly, I just get so jealous.
Right.
It's like it's not fair.
Does that mean we might see some piano on the next Anthrax record?
Probably not. Unless I sit on it.
All right, I suppose we should probably discuss some touring at some point. So I want to be a little selfish for a minute because I never actually asked you this back in the day when I was working for Anthrax, but we've discussed different styles of touring on this podcast fairly relentlessly. Obviously, tour buses, we can fly shows, you can get in a splitter and do hotels, but I think you've done it the best because you got to travel on Ed Force One, didn't you?
Oh yeah, the Iron Maiden plane. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how was that being flown around on a plane by? I know you guys are massive Maiden fans. Anyway, doing a whole tour on the plane with a band being flown around by the lead singer.
There's so many aspects of it that are, amazing. Being on tour with Maiden, huge. Because I've loved them since their first album. Knowing Steve Harris since 1983 to now, and he's the same exact person from then to now. The guy is just one of the greatest, and like I would say that we kind of tried to model our band after Iron Maiden, because if you're going to copy any band, I don't mean musically, I just mean the way they go about things, then that's the blueprint, Iron Maiden, because they do everything the right way and they treat everybody like gold.
Wow.
So touring on their plane was amazing, and of course, yes, Bruce was the pilot, and there was another pilot too that would fly sometimes, but I preferred Bruce way better than the other pilot.
Oh, wow.
Bruce had smooth takeoff, smooth landings. Whenever there was a bit of turbulence, I asked him about this, and Bruce actually went into an hour and a half conversation about how you can avoid turbulence. Just got to find that other altitude to take it. I mean, sometimes there are no comfortable routes to go, so sometimes you have to endure a bit of turbulence. But it was a really fascinating conversation about aviation. But like I said, Bruce flying the plane way better than the other pilot. So the way it worked out is we were in the front of the plane, which would be like the first class, I guess. Maiden was upstairs in the awesome class. And then behind us was, management, some press people, and then crew and stuff like that. And then the gear was way in the back. And it was a huge plane. But the greatest thing is when like the flight attendants come over and they ask you what you want, and there's an Iron Maiden napkin, an Iron Maiden cup. And all I keep thinking was, can I get a couple of these to take with me? But it was just magic. That whole tour was just amazing down in South America. One of my favorite stories, and it's one I tell all the time, is we played El Salvador, and we weren't allowed to leave the hotel because there were people everywhere, and we were kind of stuck at the hotel. So the next day we played the gig. It was in this huge stadium, sold out. It was just amazing. Those people, they're so passionate about things, especially music. So the next day we were leaving to go to the next country, and the vice president came down to greet us and thank us for being there. So it was all of us in Maiden and crew and everybody in the hotel lobby. And he said, yesterday in El Salvador, there was no crime. And we were like, wow, that's awesome. He's like, because all the criminals were at your show. Ah! And it was just such a funny moment, but an also serious moment too.
Yeah, they just need to get you a residency there, and that's crime solved.
That's what I said. We know how to solve crime now.
Is there a better way to travel on tour?
Well, to be honest with you, I like traveling by bus. To be honest with you, because I could sleep. I mean, yeah, of course, flying is great, but I couldn't do it all the time. It just takes a lot out of you too. You know what I mean? The flying, the up, the down, all that stuff. So I prefer a bus, but of course, I'm not going to complain about going on an Iron Maiden plane.
No, you're very efficient in an airport too. I mean, you are in and out.
Hate them. Hate everything about them.
Yeah. Nate, can you relate to touring on a plane with Iron Maiden? You got anything?
No. No, but I've been I understand the sentiment is the same when you're on tour with the band and your support, and they take care of you in the ways that might be the least comfortable in normal circumstances, and they go out of their way to treat, the support. It changes everything. If they've gone out of their way to make your rider budget a little bit bigger so that you have, a deli tray or just small things like that. So I've never been flown on a private jet with the headliner, but it's the same. It's the same sentiment, right? When the headliner is taking care of the support band, that's nothing makes the tour better, and there's a camaraderie to that too, I think.
I think a lot of times bands who come into this world, into this business, and they think that it's going to be this, it's going to be that, and then they go on tour with a band, and then that band doesn't cater to their every need, and then it turns out to be like, look, this sometimes this is how it is on tour. I mean, we've been on tour opening for bands that shit, our gear went up there like 5 minutes before doors are opening.
Yeah,
so
100%.
you're basically, your whole set is a fucking sound check, and then by the time you get to the last song, yeah, you sound good now. And then of course you get those people afterwards who come and is like, oh God, you guys sounded like shit. And it's like,
Yeah.
but and again, sometimes bands that are out on tour with us, sometimes they don't get to have a sound check because of the show, the day, just everything ran late and you didn't have it. But for the most part, we'll give a band as much time as we could possibly give them to get it together, to get a good sound. You know what I mean? So that, because we don't want them to sound like shit either. It's a whole thing that people are coming to see. So if the opening band sounds like shit, it kind of puts things, sets it off in not a good tone.
Yeah, I find it a lot of times it's bands that never kind of did it in a van or were grinding at any point in their career. Those are the bands that have the worst fucking attitudes about everything. Bands that really did it, and I know you were one of them. Bands that really did it, that's where you find that everyone's treating each other with a certain amount of respect or understanding about what's happening on tour. It's guys that did not ever spend a shit day in a van or.
I agree with that a lot. I mean, I would say go out in a van or something like that with the band, and of course some crew too. By the time that tour is done, you're going to know who is going to make it in the band and who's not going to make it. And we found that out too. So it's a good learning experience. And the days of getting up and singing and being judged and yeah, you're the great one, we think you're the best, I don't know, man. You don't go through the every step of how to do it. You know what I mean? It's like I just think those days it's just wrong to do it that way.
I agree.
So you think it's as important to have done the grind and learn the industry from the bottom up as to just be talented and be able to sing really well? Or
right. I think it's important to learn, that you have flaws and that, every day is not going to be great, because some days you're going to show up to a gig and there's going to be 20 things that are wrong, and you have to have resources and you have to figure out how are we going to, take each one of those 20 things and make it better and not let it affect the psyche, the show, why you're out there in the first place. It's it's a long way to the top.
Somebody told me once that going on tour is just problem solving. It's not the shows. You rehearse at rehearsal to make the show good, but being good at touring is just problem solving, and it's kind of true.
It's either going to break you or it's going to build you up. You know what I mean? Because you have that experience. I mean, shit. I still see bands nowadays touring in a van or a modified looking Winnebago or whatever, and you could tell that they have this passion and they don't care. They'll eat when they eat. They'll drink when they drink. And it's just all about the music. And like that's the one thing about us back in the day. Like a lot of us just had this vision. Okay, doesn't matter. We're still going to do it. Like Scott and I were talking the other day about, in our rehearsal room, we would rehearse 5 nights a week, sometimes 7 nights a week, because when we would play in there, we would play as if this was like us at the Garden, and you just have this kind of this vision and you want to get there. And each day, each week, each month, each year, you set goals and you try and hit them. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. Sometimes you hit goals that you never thought you'd hit.
Yeah, I get it. So how good is it going to feel when you finally get back to playing a show? Have you thought about it as much as I can imagine? It's been on your mind a lot.
Do you mean mentally how's it going to feel, or physically how's it going to feel? Because the physical part is what I'm worried about the most. A lot of bands, we haven't done this in a year and a half, like play a real show. Of course, we've been playing and stuff like that, but man, when you're out there and it's like another year and a half, 2 years taken from you, from your touring body, how's your COVID recovering body gonna, not that we all had COVID, I'm just saying, just recovering from this year, and I'm sure once we're out there and we smell it and the music starts and boom, I think it's all gonna kick in again. People gonna be like, wow, this is just like I remembered it.
I'm sure the adrenaline will get you through that first show. I can imagine the night after might be a little more painful.
That's what I'm worried about. I'm also worried about my tempo, because it's going to be like first show. It's going to be like usually a 90-minute show will go 90 minutes, but I have a feeling I'm going to do a 90-minute show in 40 minutes.
It's going to be it's going to sound like Bad Brains at CBGB's in '82. It's going to be a quick one. It's going to be a fast one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, because I know that you were meant to be coming over to the UK this summer to do a festival over here, and obviously with all the travel restrictions, that's not happening anymore. I mean, how has it been constantly having to like readjust to potentially doing a show or potentially touring and then having to delay it? And
well, the only thing that I've had to delay, we did an art show. Carla and we did an art show a month or so ago, and we had to postpone it twice because we thought it was going to be okay, and then bam, spike from this, and we had another date and had to postpone that. So the next show that we have is in July, so that's going to be in Wisconsin. That's a festival. So let's see, man. Hopefully people keep getting vaccinated and just kind of get with it and stop being assholes.
Words to live by.
Yeah. So food like regularly makes an appearance on this podcast. And when I used to work with you guys, like occasionally on days off, we would hang out and you would take me for dinner very kindly every now and then. And I think one time we were somewhere in Tennessee and we went to this restaurant that was on top of a hotel, and you introduced me to gator. That was the first time I've ever come across eating gator. I didn't even know people ate it. I didn't realize it was a thing. But it's almost like calamari the way they do it, isn't it? They kind of like fry it and like cut it into little chunks.
Yeah.
But that is the weirdest thing I've eaten on tour. People were trying to tell me it's like chicken, but it's not like chicken.
No,
that's not like chicken.
Nah, but yeah, I think it's like look, you could cut anything up and fry it and be like, this is really good. What is this? It's like, oh, you're eating sponge, but it's so good,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, there's definitely, I've definitely changed the way I eat over the past couple of years to a more healthier thing. I mean, I still see people eating stuff that I'm just looking like, okay, I just can't do it anymore. That's all.
I mean, that's the weirdest thing I've eaten on tour. I mean, I don't know. I think it must be normal in that part of the country and stuff. Have you got any weird things that you've eaten on tour?
Ostrich.
Wow.
First time I had like a bison burger, I was like, this tastes different. But yeah, ostrich was weird. I remember we were in Denver and we went to this one restaurant and they served it, and they also served gator too. But in Japan, I've had some weird things like some 50-year-old egg or something. I was like, I don't like this too much. But yeah, it's so funny because I'll have something that's been aged. I'll have whiskey or a nice glass of wine, and that aged pretty well. But the egg didn't age well.
Are you always game to try stuff?
I used to be more. Now I don't. Now my stomach says, "Fuck you! Do not put that in."
Nate, you got weirder than Ostrich?
No. It's just in the South they'll deep fry anything really when it comes down to it. In Japan, I would also say I ate some things that I was.
What, you don't know what they are, or?
I mean, kind of got an explanation. I know I had some. Fermented umami, which was one of the most vile. I mean, I know people love it, and it's 100% a delicacy, and it's a delicacy in the state. People you get it at any sushi restaurant, but to me it was just very unpleasant.
Yeah, when it's funny when you have to do this to eat something, it's probably not
for sure.
It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I had some snails in Greece. I'm not a big escargot fan, but I think also too, when a promoter, if a show, it comes down to this for me. If the show has sold some tickets and the promoter's happy and wants to do this stuff for you, then you just fucking got to do it. You know what I mean? It feels fucked up to not do it. You know, if they're like, look, this is what we eat here. This is delicious. And you're like, it certainly is food.
What if it's going to endanger the show, though? Like,
oh, I never do it before. I would never do it before. It would just be, well, I guess I actually have. But now I would say that it's not, you know, if you're going to gag or you think it's going to explode out of you, I wouldn't risk the tickets.
Actually, some of the best food I've had it was in Greece.
Hands down.
And I always try and tell my friends that when you have a gyro in Greece, it's unlike anything that you had here in America. The taste is completely different, and I love Greek food.
I will go out on a limb and say that it's life-changing. It's the best. It's the best food. It's actually the best food I've had anywhere in the world. I would say was in Greece, in different parts of Greece.
You talking about all the grilled stuff?
Everything that they do is better. I mean, there's a salad in Greece called horiatiki, like a village salad. It's just onions and tomatoes and cucumber and feta mixed up in a bowl with olive oil, and it tastes worlds different than anything you can get here, even in a organic farmer's market. It's better there.
And I found that the meat there too is it's not as greasy and oily. It's just I don't know, man. It was just really good. I mean, I could philosophize about this all. So Socrates used to love going. Anyway, sorry.
I feel like, Nate, you were talking more passionately about food than guitars there. Like, I feel
for
like
sure.
You know where you're at, for sure.
For sure.
I got one last thing to kind of go over. Apparently, it's been 30 years since Bring the Noise on that tour with Public Enemy. Wow. Was there ever any thoughts of doing like an anniversary tour or anything? I mean, I know it's difficult with COVID, but like that was such a seminal tour of bringing two completely different things together. Like, was there ever any thought of looking back at that?
We always entertain the thought, and I would love to do something again. You know, the thing about the whole thing with Public Enemy and us is we always said if we couldn't create something that could top that, we wouldn't touch it, and we haven't touched it. But I could see us actually going out on tour and doing a tour together. I think that would be really good. And it's something that is always in the back of my mind, being that this is the 30th anniversary of it. Yeah. You know, I mean, we have a 40th anniversary, but the 40th anniversary, it's from when Scott had the idea of the band, you know what I mean? So it's not really from when our first album came out. And I think we're predating ourselves doing it, but that's what we're doing. So we're working really hard on something special for that.
Oh, that's really cool.
So I know you covered for the Silver Lining stuff. You done Run DMC, and obviously it's a pretty seminal moment in music history to tour with hip hop band before, with Public Enemy, to do anything like that before that was even a thing. I mean, nobody had, it wasn't really thought about. How do you feel like growing up where you did and participating in those types of tours and musical collaborations, how hip hop has influenced you as a musician and vice versa?
Well, for me, I grew up in the Bronx, so I was exposed to that stuff very early. Graffiti too. I
Amazing.
used to the school I went to. When you would walk out of the school, there would be the six train right there, and you would see the cars go by, and it would be covered with graffiti. Which to some, I mean, for me too, it's like some of it was terrible. It looked dirty, but then there would be these cars that were done with these amazing pieces, and I would just stare at it and just love it. That whole culture was something that I always kind of, I don't know, I just loved. So when bands like Run DMC, you know, when they started to come up, I just loved it. I just loved the whole thing. I mean, I would tell the story about Run DMC. It had a song called King of Rock, and
Mhm.
it's like the beat behind it, and of course Rick Rubin was involved in it, and to me it was always really heavy. And how could I not like it? They had guitar in it, so Run DMC to me changed everything.
Amazing. Yeah, it kind of, I loved that era of hip hop, but as a teenager I was coming up more on like Tribe Called Quest and Biggie Smalls, and that stuff blew my fucking mind. I mean, it blew me wide open. And then
Yeah.
right on the tail end of that, like Outkast, when stuff started kind of coming out of the South, and Outkast, at one point, Outkast for me was the most creative group across all genres that was like pushing boundaries and using rock music and using hip hop to create something completely different.
I mean, I totally agree with you with Outkast, because I felt Outkast took the best of hip hop and took the best of rock too, and then put Prince in the middle of it and just made something,
100%.
and yeah, I mean, Outkast. I think Outkast may be for me, and I know people would be like, "What, are you crazy?" But I think after that, hip hop kind of.
I would across the board basically agree with it, with maybe one or two exceptions of some stuff. I don't think it is pushed. I think it was on a 25, 30-year streak of pushing boundaries socially, musically. I think it was like moving outwards, and then it stopped at a certain
Uh,
point.
it's funny because all those. Okay, so a lot of the hip hop stuff that to me was the best wasn't getting heard or featured in mainstream radio or television or whatever. And once it finally got heard, it opened the door for the crap of it to come in and be featured. So like nowadays, I can't stand it. I can't even listen to any of it because I think does not saying anything. It's very sterile. So same with rock music too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the weirdest thing about hip hop now, as a you know, speaking in percussion, it's all in triplets. Trap music is literally all triplets. The hi-hat's on a triplet and the vocal delivery is in a triplet across, I mean, every single song. It's not, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. That is a predetermined form that
Right.
I find it to be so bizarre.
So you could take something like Outkast, you could take something like Biggie Smalls, you could take a Tribe Called Quest, you could take Eminem, you could take Dr. Dre. I just mentioned 5 different artists, and each one of them sounds completely different from each other. Nowadays, I couldn't tell you who's who, who's what. It just all
Sure.
sounds like the same song to me. Um, and same with metal in a sense. It all sounds the same to me. I remember a couple of months ago, I put on like Apple Music, and they always have like the top rock, top metal, top rap. So I said, let me hear what the top metal is, and I was just like, what the fuck? It's just,
Yeah.
it just sounded like the same song over and over again.
Yeah, I think you have a few things in rock, but very few. I mean, you have Mastodon, but I mean they're not like a new band at this point. Mastodon's been around for like 15
Yeah, Mastodon.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no young guys really making noise where you're like, oh, this is. I haven't heard this take on it before.
yeah, because they don't strive to be, fucking like. It's like I feel like they go, I need a heavy guitar sound. I want it to sound like this, and then they get the guitar sound, and then they scream over it in the same riff, and they tune down low, and it's just like, okay, but where's the song?
Yeah.
That's what you forgot. You got all the elements, you looked the part, but you forgot one big thing, a fucking song. And that's where it all goes down for me.
Dario, why have you never introduced me to Charlie before? We're literally kindred spirits. This is
He doesn't want to speak to you on a regular basis.
I'm
saving him from you.
I feel like I've been missing a piece of me my whole life, and I've just discovered it.
I mean, I'm no aficionado on like hip hop at all, but like all the artists you mentioned, like I think the thing they've all got in common is like actual musicality. When you listen to their songs, there's like not just a beat, but there's a beat with something. I know that some of it's sampled and whatever, but then there's actual music and harmony and stuff in the background that's changing that really adds to it. Whereas whatever I hear now from that whole genre doesn't really carry that torch anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And you know, to break down a Public Enemy song, man, that's just like, that's a song. I mean, when Public Enemy released something, it's like the start of it gets you hooked, and then it just flows into something, and at the end of the song, it's like, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. Chuck enlightens you about something, and yet it just keeps you moving throughout the whole song. I just find nowadays people are just looking for a song to take a video to and put it up.
Yeah.
But it's also one thing. It's the gatekeepers. That to me is the biggest thing, and is the fucking gatekeepers. And that's the one thing that you got to try and break, because following fucking formats, it's like, we've been doing this for how long, and you're telling me that we can't get played here because it doesn't fit your format. And it's like that's my biggest problem with music and everything else in this country, is like there's no fucking balance. Just like, I'm tired of hearing this, I'm tired of hearing that. There's no balance. Why shouldn't the metal category in the Grammys be televised? The rap category wasn't televised back in the day, but now it is. No balance. Country music, horrible. And yet it still gets so much attention. It sounds like the same fucking song, the same fucking chords, the same hooks, and yet people still listen to it. It's not like, and I'm not bashing country music of old, because that to me that's the beauty right there. Like, listen to the album that Loretta Lynn did with Jack White, Van Lear Rose. That is country music, not this shit you hear now.
Yep.
I was actually talking to a friend of mine 2 days ago, and he remembers in 2002, his band was signed to Island Def Jam, and he was in the office when this he sat in on this meeting before he was sitting down with his A&R rep, and his A&R rep said, "Cups, just sit in this meeting real quick, and then we'll go have our meeting." And he said it was like Leor Cohen, it was Mottola. I mean, it was everyone. It was just this round table conglomerate of all the heads of the division of Island Def Jam Sony. And he said the conversation was this: streaming is happening and downloading is happening. Who is still buying music? And it was hip-hop fans and country music fans. And they basically made a decision at this meeting, this label, and said, cool, that's what we're literally going to push until it doesn't work anymore, because of the financial implications of letting that go. And it makes perfect sense if you think about it now, is that pop country and hip-hop is everywhere, and it's homogenized, and it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean it is, but I maybe I misunderstood what you said, but because for me, rock fans, metal fans, punk rock fans, whatever, they're the ones that buy the actual hard copy. You know what I mean? Hip hop country fans, I don't see them buying music like that because all they have is in here. They
Sorry,
listen to
they were
everything
paying
here.
for downloads at the time.
That's
They
yeah,
were paying
okay.
for downloads. Yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, which makes sense to me because, like I said, everything is here.
As a
Like with metalheads, rock fans in general, like myself, I want to open up that package. I want to read everything about it. I want to smell it.
yep.
A lot of people could care less about that stuff anymore, but for me especially, it's very important. You know, I went to Walmart yesterday specifically to go find Nirvana Bleach that they put an exclusive
Wow.
version of it out, and I had to have it because I love that album. That album's so awesome.
Great record.
It's weird that you say smell because I always remember getting Iowa and that booklet smelt different and weird to every other record. And I don't know what they'd done or whether they did that on purpose, but that was a real thing that it smelt different to any other booklet I'd ever opened before.
Right, and it reminds you of that too. That's the
Yep.
thing. I remember when Madonna put out "Like a Prayer," and when you opened it, it smelled like patchouli oil. But that was they
Wow.
did that. Um,
That's amazing.
and see, it's things like that. That's what I love about
Yeah.
like that whole vibe of music. Because when I was a kid, I would play the record and I just stare at the cover and read everything about it. I mean, and then when it came time for us to make records, and it's like, who do you want to produce it? It's like, well, Eddie Kramer did right here. Eddie Kramer did, Led Zeppelin, Kiss, and blah blah blah.
Amazing.
I want him.
Just quickly going back to, because I know all the stuff that you've used to kind of help make Silver Linings, all the plugins for guitar and the drum sounds and everything are great and like really useful tools. But like now that whole homogenous sound is, so when I look at like you guys compared to Metallica, like you were part of the same movement, but you had your own sound. You guys sounded different, but you were part of the same thing. Whereas now it looks like, or it sounds like, a lot of these bands just plug into a Kemper and they all download the same patch and they put no effort into actually trying to sound any different. And then you just get the same. And I think bands having a sound is a really important thing. I buy into that just as much as the songs or anything else. Like if your guitar rips, then I'm into it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you, I think like you take someone like Dimebag. Okay, so Daryl's sound to me just completely just ripped your head off when
Yep.
you heard it, and I couldn't hear another sound in those songs. You know what I mean? That's the one thing about Pantera too, is the tones. Okay, they sounded like Pantera. So
Hmm.
Vinny's drums,
But
Daryl's
everybody's tried to get
guitars.
Vinny's kick drum now, haven't they? Like I feel like that's what.
Yeah, I feel it's very I mean, actually, if you listen to the tones on that Bob Rock gets, he gets really great tones, especially drum tones. And I think people forgot how to do that, or maybe they just don't spend the time to do that anymore
Yep.
because it's like, let's go, we got to go. Come on, we don't have the money to waste here. Let's get it done. And if nowadays, if it comes in a box, then let's just do it that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a dying art of getting a tone,
Yep.
and because the tone makes the song, makes the band. A lot of those albums that we grew up on, just the tones of those records, like a Steve Harris bass tone. You know what I mean? It's just like when you hear it, it's just like, fuck, that's so awesome.
I think I've said this to Nate before, but I just miss hearing the room on like a lot of these new recordings. Everything's so tight and so there's no space anywhere. Like in there, it's all gridded and everything's chopped, and but
There's
there's
no
no
soul. There's no.
nah.
There's no. And that's another thing. Eddie Trunk always talks about bands playing to a tape or a click during a live show, and I don't agree with it either, because what if the drummer wants to push it that
Mm-hmm.
night? What if what if what if the audience is reacting to something, but you can't react to it because you're on a grid? You
Yep.
can't move. You got to
Right.
stay there. That's the thing about playing live. You're alive. You know what I mean? I just don't agree with. I mean, maybe play a song or two to a click because you have a certain part in the song that you're trying to create. There may be some orchestration or whatever. So it's like, okay, cool. But the whole show on that is just, it's just sterile.
I mean, one of the amazing things about watching you play 100 odd shows was that you have this, it seems to me that you have this thing where like you will like either push slightly into a section or hold back a little bit. So you either get this snap or this big kind of pause just before
Boom.
you fly. Yeah. And like you can't do that
Yeah.
if it's on a click track. Like,
No, and like I said, how do you react to an audience if you're on it, if the time, you're the timekeeper, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's like, why rely on this other thing to tell you, well, you can't react to the audience or you can't react to the guitar player. If you guys want to do something cool in this little section, you can't,
Yeah.
because you got to stick to that. And that to me, I mean, if you tape 10 Anthrax shows, I guarantee you I will play that part 10 different ways, you know, because that's how I feel that night, you know.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. I'm reacting to this, I'm reacting to that. It's just a mood. So I agree with people when they say don't play the tape, you know.
I get it. I'm thrown all the way back to Public Enemy. Like, did you guys know that you were like doing something like bringing these two audiences and genres together? Did it like when you were talking about doing the tour or anything? Do you have any idea that this was actually like a thing that you were not creating, but like bringing these two audiences and genres together? And like, do you think they
No, I
could
don't think we
coexist?
ever, I don't think we sat down and did the math
Yeah.
about it. We were just excited and we loved it so much that it just felt natural to us. And then, you know, again, back when we did it, I really think we were on the cusp of something, and it didn't kick in maybe till a year or two later when we were kind of done with it in a way,
Yeah.
you know. Then other bands, like I think Rage Against the Machine was the band that kind of got it right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that changed the musical landscape after that. There was some great bands that came out of that marriage of us and Public Enemy. You know,
Yeah.
I feel Corn. I love those first two Corn records. I think they were so awesome. You know, and to this day, you know, I'll see them and they'll play some songs. I'm just like, this song is fucking awesome. You know? But again, they have songs.
Yep. I actually watched a quick interview with Chuck D before, and he said that them touring with you guys, it was the first time that a hip hop or a rap act had ever really had to think about lighting and stage setting. Like it wasn't a thing for those guys before that. Is there anything that you guys took from them, like in terms of performance?
It's he always tells that story, and like I just listen to Chuck talk because he just has such a way
Yeah.
with words and everything, and it's very true. They one of their guys didn't know anything about lighting, and our lighting guy kind of took him under his wings, basically
Mm-hmm.
taught him and showed him how to kind of light and program like a hip hop show. And Chuck always tells that story. He's like, after we did the Anthrax tour, when we went back to doing hip hop shows, we were like the Michael Jordan of lighting at that point. And it's so great
Amazing.
that to hear him tell that story. The thing that we took from Public Enemy, they just had this ferocious thing about them, man. Chuck came on the stage and his voice was like, you know, fucking 10 bass cabinets, you know what I mean? It just kind of resonated. And to me, to this day, he's still one of the best MCs.
Awesome. That's
Agree.
really cool.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's amazing.
Since I'm gonna get a little serious for a minute, and then I don't want to take up any more time. But ever since the George Floyd thing last year, like I've tried to learn a little more about like civil rights in the States and everything else, and I didn't realize that tour was in and around the same time as the Rodney King thing in the States, and the tensions were like super high. Was that like ever a consideration of like having this melting pot at shows of these two different sections of society come together? Was there ever a concern, or did you think that music was going to be the thing that brought people together off the back of it?
I always thought music was the thing that spoke to people, you know.
Yeah.
Even if we didn't speak the language, music always speaks the language, and it does something to people. It either soothes them or makes them completely, you know, insane. There were times on that tour where just small times when I don't know, certain things were written up or radio stations said to stay away from the show because there's going to be
Oh, wow.
violence and stuff. But there
Jesus.
was never any violence, ever.
That's a shame that the press kind of tried to push it like that.
Shocker. Shocking.
Yeah.
Hey, Nate, have you got anything else to ask Charlie, or?
No, I mean, I guess the last thing I would want to know, you've been doing this, you know, the majority of the time you've been alive. I'm 18 years, 19 years into, almost 20 years into a career. What keeps you coming? What keeps you coming back? You know, even so, you just described like living through a pandemic where there's 2 years of no shows. You know, just what is it that you would tell someone that they could identify that in themselves if they have it or not? Why do you do this?
Sometimes I question it too, that drive, that passion. I mean, I think coming from New York has a lot to do with it too, that kind of, you know, we can fall down, get up, dust yourself off, and let's go, you know. But I think for me, it's the love of music, and it's one of the greatest things during this pandemic was creating these songs, these videos, and just having an outpouring of people saying how much it kind of made them happy or got them through a day that was completely dark, and you know, that to me means a lot because it actually helped me a lot too, to get through a day which turned into a week, which turned into a month, and then all of a sudden, holy shit, it's been a year. You know what I mean? And there was so much other things going on in the country too that we were dealing with, that it was just like, God, what's next? And of course, I know the joke was, you know, aliens and stuff, but yeah, I expected that too to happen. You know, back in July, it's like, what's next? Oh shit, someone saw a ship. You know,
So crazy.
But I just think it's something from within. If you really love what you do, then it's a cliche to say, but you'll never work a day. And that's very true. I mean, I would get lost sitting up here in my little studio, like literally just get lost and just become possessed by the guitar or the drums. And it just takes you away to a different place. And it's a great thing. People need passion in their lives. Enough with the fucking negativity. Just be positive. Go create something.
There you go.
That's it. I think anybody who's ever listened to you talk about music or anything has no doubt that you have that like passion in abundance. And I think it's very clear the way you speak about everything to do with music. It's really cool.
Well,
I'm inspired. I'm inspired from this conversation for sure.
Nate's mid-rehearsal too.
Daryl's lucky because he's in the land where I feel that most of my happiness and music, you know, comes from, you know, always from fucking England. I always draw from that because it just seems like back in the day, they got what a lot of the blues cats here were doing when the Americans really didn't even get it. And, you know, the Beatles and the Stones, they took it, you know, and did something else with it, just made it global, you know, just what happened. And I still draw from those bands, the Beatles and the Stones. I still think that the Stones were the first punk rock band, and
I'd agree with that.
They were just punks,
loose and swagger.
Yeah, and they were just so And there's always been the Beatles Stones thing, but I've always loved both. But I didn't like the Stones, the early side of the Stones, as much as I like the dirty kind of 67 to 72 Stones, when they started to just become their own,
Sticky Fingers is a mind-blowing record. I've been recently like rediscovering it and just diving into it, and it's like I've been trying to make a record that blends like soul and rock and blues and country, and meanwhile they've fucking done it, and they did it a long time ago, and I'm not going to do better than that. So
did you ever think of like because I think of this all the time every time I hear like a song from the Beatles too, of course, but the Stones is like, they'll have a riff or they'll have this musical piece, and yet the thing that Jagger sings completely takes that and elevates it to another place.
Different thing.
And it's just amazing how they had all these songs, and every single one of them is just so classic. And it's just like, yeah, that's the thing people need to do nowadays. Is, you need to be better. You can't just rely on it's good enough. No, push it. You think like a song like fucking Honky Tonk Woman is just like when you hear it, and Mick's voice is like just another instrument in that whole mix. It's just amazing.
But there's no drive to be better anymore, is there? You can get it auto-tuned, or you can get it chopped into place, or you can get a session. There's that drive to be original and better. Just there's no value in it, really, is there? Why go and spend 20 years learning to sing if auto-tune can do it for you?
Well, right, but there's the contradiction there is like if you go on YouTube, you'll see millions of tutorials of how to be better.
There's also like thousands of amazing singers on there too that can't get a gig.
Thousands.
Right, but there'll only be one left when you put them in a van and put them on tour. If they get in that van, there's gonna be one motherfucker left who's like, you know what, singing in my bedroom on YouTube is much better than this.
Yeah, but wouldn't you agree that as far as musicians go, they've gotten so much better technically? They've gotten so much better in like what they can achieve, rather than they could watch somebody on YouTube and it's like, that's how he's doing it. Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to get that pedal and I'm going to do exactly what he's doing. And there he is. He's just as good as that guy.
Plus, there's just like endless inspiration. I mean, like there's this whole like new like neo soul guitar thing going on, and all these guys are like incredible players, like playing like R&B licks, but like rapping. I'm just sat there going, how do you do that? How? But then I can sit and watch them for 3 hours and not get close, but try.
Yeah, but it's inspired.
Always. Charlie, it's been super cool talking to you, man. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a blast.
Really nice to meet you.
Do you want to tell us where and when we can get the record and stuff? And
Silver Linings comes out May 14th. Of course, you can order it now and go to Apple Music and listen to it there. And it's awesome.
It is really cool. It is really cool, man.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
No, man, it's been a great chat, and it's been awesome to catch up with you.
Cheers.
And hopefully see you at some point on tour somewhere soon.
All right, guys. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, man. Thank you very much. I'll send you the stuff once it's done.
Cool. I'm going to go buy a guitar.
Bye, dude.
Bye.
Congratulations on making it to the end of another episode of Tour Talk. You can keep up to date with us across the socials at Tour Talk Pod. So that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Please subscribe, comment, like, and share, and we will see you next week.